Thank you. So it will be a quite short presentation, don't worry. So the key theme is if a car or a vehicle can be built by when solely on RISC-V. That's our theme, SiFive. So in SiFive, we are developing CPU cores from low end to high end. So that means we have very good visibility. Yeah? Yeah? Good. Okay. Okay. So we are developing CPU cores, 32-bit, 64-bit, optimized for various applications. And what we are looking at the moment is if and by when a vehicle is achievable that's solely based on RISC-V. So no other CPU cores, but let's forget for a second 16-bit ECUs or something, that's not in our scope. So it's about by when an all RISC-V vehicle is possible and where do we stand at the moment. So the interesting bit there is at the moment that we see a very changing landscape in automotive. What does it mean? We see new players, especially in China, but not just in China. A theme that's very difficult for all of us is the geopolitical challenge. Yeah, that's driving at the moment many discussions. Yeah, the trade barriers is something we see. Interestingly, these trade barriers support RISC-V adoption at the moment, especially in China. Initially, we thought, the autonomous driving functions accelerate the adoption of RISC-V, but it's actually even more. What we see is not just the autonomous driving functions and AI, it's also, AI in the edge. That means we don't have AI not just in the ADAS functions in automotive, we also have AI in the IVI system and maybe even in zonal systems. I come back to that in a sec. Someone was saying cars are becoming apps on wheels. Yeah, we had the computer on wheel, the smartphone on wheel. Now it's the app store on wheels. Let's see. But what it means at the end is there is a big change ongoing in automotive, and we see new EE architectures. That means how the car is organizing its architecture, its electrical architecture is changing. So we see new approaches challenging traditional approaches. How does that look like? From an outside world, it looks like a bit like this. So we see new approaches in Xiaomi. You might have heard from this car in Germany. It's the kind of nickname is the Porsche killer. Yeah, for this car, it's beating the car in performance. Yeah, that's very interesting, but especially also in price. Yeah, it's a Porsche for half the price. And how can they achieve that? We see Xiaopeng, we see, all sorts of new dashboards. We saw Audi without the rings becoming available in China. Also, this Audi has a different EE architecture than the Audi of the past. Now, what's happening underneath? OEMs, some more, some less, are moving their very fragmented architecture from a highly distributed architecture to a, very centralized zonal approach. Yeah, what we can say roughly is that 1/3 is moving to the right side, some slower, some faster. We see 1/3 being somehow in the middle, and 1/3 of the companies stay on the left side. The problem on the left side is very straightforward. OTA is very difficult. New functions are very difficult. It's pretty much impossible or very expensive to realize an app store on this side or an OTA. That's very, very difficult because you need to change maybe even the hardware if you want to add a function. And you know how long it takes in automotive to add a hardware function. Yeah. So the key thing we are promoting at the moment in the automotive world is that RISC-V is the best architecture to match this new EE architecture, so the centralized or zonal architecture. RISC-V is just perfect. Yeah, why? RISC-V is, so what you want to do is you want to move software around. Now, if this is having different architectures, you know, different peripherals whatsoever, it's very challenging. Yeah? A key element is that it's moving to Ethernet, and the other one is that ideally you have a single architecture. And this is accelerating the adoption of RISC-V in the automotive world. Yeah, it's just very good to have a unified architecture. It simplifies everything. Yeah, your software development becomes simpler. You can also, it's up to you to scale the whole system. Yeah, and this is accelerating the adoption of it. So we, at this moment, you know, look at it, and what's needed, that this is going to be a system based on RISC-V by 2030. Yeah? This is our target. By 2030, an all RISC-V vehicle is possible. If it's going to be a European Volkswagen, a Stellantis, I cannot tell you. If it's happening in China, I would say it's very likely. Yeah, if it's just a single car, if it's a fleet, if it's something that just theoretically be possible, but you know, it will be a mix. Yeah, and if you select all the ones you have, it's probably possible. That's something for speculation, and we will see by 2030. But what you need, by all means, is an architecture that supports scalability. That means from bottom to top. So you need a 10 MIPS device up to a 2 to 4 gigahertz high-end device. That's what you need, and all that has to be done with a RISC-V. You need compatibility, at least some compatibility alongside all the suppliers. Otherwise, it's very difficult. If the RISC-V world is diverging, it's very difficult to achieve that. The beauty of this architecture based on RISC-V is that we agree on a common standard. Yeah, that's very important, maybe on profiles and so on. And you need automotive-grade products, so it's great that we see at the moment a big momentum for that. And that's very critical. You need to have the ecosystem support. Now, what we drive at the moment for further ecosystem support is the availability of boards. And that's quite important. We say it's even more important that the boards exist and everybody can use it, rather than its automotive functional safe version, because at the end, the automotive grade ASIL-B, ASIL-D is not necessarily visible for most of the ecosystem players. And with all these initiatives, activities, we believe by 2030 an all RISC-V vehicle is possible and very likely to happen, probably a bit more in the Eastern world than in the Western world. But even in the Western world, it would be achievable. And let's discuss that also at our booth. We are very happy and invite you to look more into that. Okay? Thanks a lot.